Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Clearly Essential educational class that we do monthly on the first Thursday of the month at 9 p.m. Eastern. And of course, we save and share all the recordings as well. But it's always fun to be on here live with as many who can join us live. And we do have a limit of 50 people, but we've only gone over it once. So I keep hoping we'll be okay with that. But I will expand it as needed in the future. So welcome to everyone who is live, and hello to everyone who's watching the recording. Thank you so much for joining us. I think you're going to get a lot out of this training. You may want to have some paper handy to take some notes. This is a really fascinating and pretty in-depth topic that we're talking about with our guest presenter, Nicole Caldwell. She is a silver on our team in the Wake Forest Raleigh area. We're very excited to have Nicole join us. So Nicole, I will let you introduce yourself and take it away.
Thank you so much. Well, hello, everybody. My name is Nicole Caldwell. As Crystal said, I am from the Wake Forest Raleigh area. I'm a mom of 4 boys, 8, 6, 4, and 2. And we have been on our doTERRA journey for about 2 years pursuing the business. And then we started sampling, maybe I should say, essential oils about 6 months before we jumped in. So blending and layering was one of those topics that I was a little bit fascinated with. And so we'll just kind of start at the beginning. I'll share a little bit about what I've learned. I do like to preface this with, I am not a scientist. I am not a chemist. I am not an aromatherapist. So I hope that means you'll stick around, because this presentation is designed to be for those of us who were none of those things. So I hope that it is interesting, and I try to explain it in a way that makes it something that you can then begin to do on your own. So when you're using essential oils, sometimes the desired outcome may be best accomplished in using more than one essential oil at a time. To do this, you are going to have to make a decision to either layer your oils or place them all together in a blend. And so when making those decisions, it's good to be informed. And I'll give you a little bit of background. So you don't come into essential oil use knowing about blending and layering. My first exposure with the topic was just hearing someone say, well, maybe you should try layering that. And I was like, oh, okay, I'll try that. And I tended towards blending things in my hand or in applying them topically, or tossing some things in a roller bottle and putting them on my kids or putting them on myself. And there was really no rhyme or reason behind it. And I did that for a long time, ignoring the blending and layering sections of the resource books I had purchased, until one night when I had a blending blunder. So my husband and I were preparing for a date, and one of my daily oils that I wear every day is Balance. And so I had recently listened to a webinar or class on essential oils and romance, we'll say, and knew that ylang ylang was something that was great for date night. And so I thought, well, I'll put these two together and I'll mix that in my doTERRA body lotion and I will wear that on our date. And so I mixed them together, applied, and headed downstairs to meet my husband. Our sitter had arrived, and he looks straight at my face and says, "What are you wearing? You smell like a barnyard." And I hadn't loved the scent when I put it on, but I thought maybe I was just off a little. He quickly let me know that my senses were not off. The combination I had thought would be perfect for our date night was a disaster. And so I quickly went upstairs, re-showered, redressed, and stuck with my regular elevation and balance combo for date night. And so once that happened, it sparked my curiosity about why was it that two oils that smell so incredible separately were so terrible together. And so I started researching and studying and really became interested in blending and layering. And so that's what we're going to be talking about tonight. And hopefully I can save you from a blending blunder and help you make choices about whether or not you should layer or blend your oils when you're applying them. Most of the time when we're talking about layering, we're going to be talking about topical application with carrier. Blending is going to obviously be topical, internal, or aromatic. And so keep that in mind as we work through. So which way do we go is the big question of the evening. We'll go over what it actually means to blend, what it actually means to layer, how do you choose between the two, how do you layer effectively, and what is the art of blending. And so you'll see as we go through that there's definitely a difference in layering, which is a little bit more of a science, and blending, which is a lot of art. So first I want to talk about carriers. Carriers is something we don't spend a whole lot of time researching in the early part of our journey, at least we did not, but I do want to highlight it just for a minute. We have several different carrier oil options, and as you're working through choosing carriers, several of them have specific benefits. So since we're going to be talking about layering first, I like to toss the carrier subject out there just to give a brief overview. So almond oil is going to be great for moisturizing the skin. It's high in vitamins A and E. Apricot oil is going to be very gentle. That's going to be a great carrier to use for sensitive skin types and children. Avocado oil is high in essential fatty acids and fat-soluble vitamins. We'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to where we talk about skin, but that is going to be an oil that helps in absorption of the essential oils, and it's great for sensitive skin or problematic skin. Coconut oil is high in properties that help the body's natural defenses against threats. And so when we are dealing with a threat in our home, coconut is our go-to carrier. Evening primrose oil is great for combating dry skin. I know a lot of us deal with that in the winter. Flaxseed oil, again, is high in vitamins, minerals, fatty acids, and great for hair. Grapeseed oil is dry, so it's not oily on the skin, and it's a natural astringent, making it a great carrier for anything to do with your face or your skin. Jojoba oil is very close to the oils your skin naturally produces, so it's going to absorb quickly and easily, making it a great carrier for getting the oils absorbed in your skin, but it will clog your pores, so it's not the best choice for your face. And then sunflower oil is great for treating damaged skin. It's a light oil, making it great for massage. So now that we've talked a little bit about carriers, let's talk about what layering is. So layering is when you apply one essential oil to the skin, wait for it to absorb, and then once it has, you apply a second oil to the same area. Once that oil has absorbed, you can follow with a third, and so on for as many oils as you like. Layering is particularly useful when multiple concerns must be addressed simultaneously, and we'll give a little bit of an example of that in just a minute. Blending is the art of making synergy blends. Synergy blends are combinations of oils that all work well together and promote something specific like relaxation, energy, or even keeping bugs away. These blends of essential oils can be used for their aromatherapy purposes as well as their medicinal purposes. There is an art to blending, which is enhanced and improved by practice and through applying proven techniques and principles, which you guys are going to learn about tonight. Artistry and skill combine to creating a blend that is aromatically pleasing and that accomplishes the desired therapeutic outcome or goal. So when in doubt, layer. That is not something I did in the early stages of my essential oil journey, and I have come to realize after my blunder that I mentioned earlier, and then just often for effectiveness, it is never a bad idea to layer your essential oils. For example, if I went for a run today, which I did not, but if I did and I stumbled off of a curb and this is what my ankle looked like, this is a great scenario in which you are going to choose to layer. Remember, I mentioned that layering is particularly useful when there are multiple conditions and concerns that need to be addressed simultaneously. obviously there's a lot going on with this ankle. So I may choose, there we go. Okay. I may choose 1 to 2 drops of cypress to address any swelling or to promote circulation on the area. I'm going to wait for it to absorb. Then I might add 1 to 2 drops of basil for the muscle discomfort, and then wait for that to absorb. My PowerPoint's being weird, sorry. Then I might add 1 to 2 drops of lemongrass for the ligament and joint support, wait for that to absorb. Then 1 to 2 drops of wintergreen, because that's going to support the bone. And then, that's going to be a good idea. Wait for it to absorb. And then lastly, I am going to add helichrysum for and it disappeared. Okay, for the bruising. And so as you can see, when you're layering, you're addressing multiple issues. A similar example may be with respiratory discomfort. Sometimes with respiratory comfort, there's extra mucus, there's tightness, there's discomfort. And so again, layering is never a bad idea when you're addressing multiple concerns. The overall key to layering is to consider each component that you wish to address and utilize the oils that are best going to support that component. So a lot of the questions that come up are, well, how long between applications? Well, what we know about our essential oils, especially our pure essential oils that we're using without synthetics, is that they are absorbed very quickly, and what is not absorbed evaporates off of our skin quickly. And so you really don't have to wait that long. Science is a little all over the map with this. Some experts saying a minute, some experts saying 30 seconds. And so I usually go somewhere in between, probably about the time that it takes you to put the first bottle down and pick the second bottle up, drop it in your hand, and then apply to the area. What order is another question that a lot of people have about layering essential oils. And the answer to that is that it really doesn't matter. You are obviously just going to get what you need out, and there isn't a science or a necessary science behind the order that you put them in. I'm sure some of you have heard about driver oils, and so that would be your next question. And let's talk about that a little bit further. Like, what does it mean for something to be a driver oil, and does such a thing even exist? So basically, the constituents in some essential oils can disrupt the phospholipid bilayer and allow enhanced penetration. D-limonene and 1,8-phenol have been shown to do this function. And so for those of you who are like me and you're not a scientist or a physician or a dermatologist or a chemist, you're like, what does that even mean? So let's talk about it a little bit further. Basically, oils high in D-limonene and 1,8-phenol have this effect where they disrupt the epidermis. So our skin consists of, first, the epidermis layer, which you can see there. It's a waterproof layer that provides protection against infection. Is basically what makes our skin waterproof. Obviously that's important, because it rains and things, and it also keeps infection out. The next layer is going to be the dermis. That's where our skin parts live, like hair follicles, sweat glands, etc. And you can see all that there in the image. And then the hypodermis, which is our fatty layer. You can see it there in the picture listed as fatty tissue. And that's basically what keeps us warm. So again, remember, I'm not a scientist, so this is my real life explanation. Fatty tissue keeps us warm. Okay, so our epidermis, again, acts as that waterproof barrier and is made up of several layers of cells. So these cells maintain their structure through what's called a phospholipid bond. Phospholipid bonds are composed of fatty acids. Fat and water don't mix, and so while water does not absorb in our skin quickly, or really at all, remember our skin is pretty waterproof, oils are readily absorbed. So when we talk about, remember I said that certain oils can disrupt the phospholipid bilayer more easily, and we talked about how those oils are the D-limonene and the 1,8-phenol, then that is what makes for what we often call in the essential oil world a driver oil. So some of those oils are going to be grapefruit, wild orange, lemon, lime, bergamot, eucalyptus, helichrysum, laurel leaf, ravensara, and rosemary. And if you'll flash back with me just for a second to the example I gave about layering and dealing with multiple issues at one time, you'll remember that with my ankle issue, I mentioned the helichrysum last. And that is for this reason, because helichrysum is high in 1,8-phenol, making it an oil that can disrupt that phospholipid bilayer easily and then drive the other oils into the skin faster. And so I recommend, typically when I layer, I look for if I'm using a combination of things, I'm going to take a look to see if I happen to be using any of these. And if that is the case, I'm going to apply them last, because you'll have, what will happen when you apply oils to the skin with carrier, they kind of pull right there on the epidermis, and then the skin absorbs them gradually. What's going to happen by applying those oils high in D-limonene and 1,8-phenol last is that they're going to disrupt that phospholipid bilayer, and everything that's pulling there is going to kind of rush in. So it's kind of like the heavyweight coming in the back and kind of pushing everybody through the skin. And so there is such a thing as driver oils, and this is why they work the way that they do. That is about all you need to know about layering. It's real basic. You go for oils that are going to address what you need. Blending is a little more complicated. Like I said, blending is an art. It is basically a lot of different factors combined together. And so we'll talk about what those factors are. First of all, let me say that doTERRA has a host of proprietary blends that can meet just about every need. And so if you are a person who has a very specific need and all of this art is not your thing, doTERRA basically has something to meet your needs. And you don't have to worry about learning the art of blending. But if you're like me and you're building your collection of oils and you're wondering about all the many uses, then you're gonna want to tiptoe into blending, because we all do. So let's talk about the process of blending. Step one in blending is going to be to find essential oils with the properties that you need. You can do this with a basic Google search, but I really encourage you to tap into some resources. There are tons of them available. I know we talk about them a lot in our classes, so if you've been to an introductory class or anything like that, you've heard about the reference books that we use. Those are huge for kind of guiding you as you make choices about oils to blend and how to blend them. And so you're first going to look for those oils with the properties that you need, and those needs are going to be based on what you're looking to achieve. Hang with going to kind of do an example at the end. That point gives you some kind of help knowing exactly how this works. So step two is going to be to blend the essential oils based on their categories, classifications, and notes. With me, because we're going to talk about that. Step three is to blend and test the blend. So mix it all together, see what you think about it. Step four is going to be to let it rest. And then step five is going to test it again and see what you think. So let's walk through each of these steps slowly together. We'll spend a lot more time tonight on blending than we did layering, because again, layering is basically choosing what you need and putting it on. Blending is a lot more involved. All right, so first is finding the essential oil with the properties you need. Easy peasy. All you have to do is Google it or look it up in a book, like I mentioned. The second step comes category, classification, and notes. And I'm sure some of you were thinking, I don't even know what those words mean. And don't worry, I did not either, because remember, I'm not an aromatherapist, I'm not a scientist, I'm not a chemist, so I didn't know what any of those things meant reading. So let's talk about categories first. So when it comes to categories, this is basically which oils go well. Floral oils blend well with woodsy, spicy, and citrus oils. Woodsy blends well with floral, earthy, herbaceous, minty, medicinal, spicy, oriental, and citrus. Earthy blends well with woodsy and minty. Herbaceous blends well with woodsy and minty. Minty blends well with woodsy, earthy, herbaceous, and citrus. Medicinal blends well with woodsy. Spicy blends well with floral. Woodsy, oriental, and citrus. Oriental blends well with floral, woodsy, spicy, and citrus. And citrus blends well with floral, woodsy, minty, spicy, and oriental. And so for those of you who are seeing the screen share, if you want to take a screenshot of that, you absolutely should. I'm going to try to get this uploaded to the Clearly Essential usage page. The other documents are already there, and some of you might have gotten the memo to print those out before you listened in tonight. This one is not there yet, but I will try to get it loaded. I didn't have it in a format earlier today where I could just upload it easily, so I'll make sure to take care of that at the end. But anyway, you may be thinking, like, well, how do I know what a floral is? Because, and sometimes you think, well, that's a no-brainer. But I did not know until I started studying blending that clary sage was a mint. And so, again, some basic research, a quick Google search, or using your resource guides can help you know which kind of category the oils you're hoping to use fall into and how to blend them well together. You'll notice that, earthy blends well with woodsy and minty, so you wouldn't necessarily blend an earthy oil with a citrus and expect it to come out smelling nicely. The next step is to look at the classifications. The good news is that this is on the handout that I've already posted to the Clearly Essential Oil usage page. So if you look in the files of that page, if you didn't have a chance to do that before you tuned in tonight, an explanation of classifications are there, and then it's a document that has most of doTERRA's oils and the classification that they fall into. So the first classification is the personifier. These essential oils make up typically 1 to 5% of the blend. They have a very sharp, strong, and long-lasting fragrance, and they also have dominant properties with strong therapeutic action. The enhancer makes up 50 to 80% of the blend, and its essential oil should be predominant as it serves to enhance the properties of the other essential oils in the blend. Its fragrance is not as sharp as the personifiers, and it's usually of a shorter duration, which means when applied, you're not going to smell the enhancer as long. It's going to fade quickly. The equalizer makes up 10 to 15% of a blend, and those essential oils create balance and synergy among the essential oils contained in the blend. Their fragrance is also not as sharp as the personifier and is of a shorter duration. The modifier, making up 5 to 8% of the blend, those essential oils have a mild and short fragrance and add harmony to the blend. So when we're looking at classifications, I want to spend a little bit of time here talking about a couple of myths when it comes to blending by classification. There are some schools of thought that believe that you need to blend oils in a particular order to create the desired chemical makeup. And that if you do not put the personifier first, the enhancer second, the equalizer third, and the modifier last, then your desired outcome is not going to have the chemical composition that you're hoping for. This has been proven via scientific testing to be false. So Dr. Pappas, a very respected essential oil chemist, has a video where you can watch him mix blends together. In his video, he uses a blend of frankincense, melaleuca, and lavender. He first blends it with the frankincense first, and then the second blend uses I believe the melaleuca first. So first frankincense in the first blend, and then melaleuca in the second. He then puts them through GCMS testing, and the test results show that the arcs of all of the constituents are exactly the same, meaning it does not matter the order that you put the essential oils in your blend. It's not going to change your result. Now, that does not mean that the chemicals do not interact and change. That is why we make blends. So when you blend oils together, the chemical profile of the blend is very different than if you were to separate out each of those oils. So when you blend an oil together, those chemical reactions happen and there's a synergistic effect forming a new unique molecular structure. But that molecular structure is not different based on the order in which you put the oils into your roller or whatever you're mixing them in. And so I just want to make sure that you understand that. For that reason, classifications is the last thing that I reference when choosing oils for a blend. So we've talked about it. I've explained which each classification is. If you have the document from the usage page, you know which classification each of the oils fall into. But I use what we're going to talk about next as my primary blending guideline. And then I use this kind of as a secondary reference point to kind of double check behind myself. And again, we're going to do this together at the end. We're going to come up with a blend together at the end. So you'll see what I mean when I say that I reference this last. Notes are, the note of an essential oil is based on how quickly it evaporates. So when you put a blend of oils on your skin, it's going to smell one way, and then 3 hours later it may smell another way because some of the oils in the blend have evaporated. The scent has evaporated off of your skin. Now we know that our skin absorbs the properties of the oil, but there's still going to be an aroma left behind. These notes are based on the musical scale and are referred to as top notes, middle notes, and base notes. Notes are how I primarily make decisions about blending. The good news is you have a document, just like the previous one I described, that lists most of the doTERRA essential oils. Well, it lists a large chunk of them, and the classification they fall into, whether they're a top note, a middle note, or a base note. So let's talk a little bit about each note type. Top notes is the first noticeable impression in a blend. It's often the characteristic feature of the oil. It springs swiftly from the aroma and has a sharp tone, but it doesn't last long. And so think about maybe some of doTERRA's proprietary blends. You know, think about the first time you take the cap off of Motivate, that first scent that hits you right when you take that cap off and you wave it under your nose. That is what you're smelling there are the top notes. The body or the middle notes are the essential oils that last longer. Typically, middle notes last about 1 to 2 hours on a perfume testing strip. The middle note of a blend is typically referred to as the heart or the bouquet of the aroma. So again, think about opening up that bottle of Motivate. I use Motivate because that's one of my favorites. And the heart of that bouquet is going to be your middle notes. And then lastly, the base note or the fixative within a blend appears much later than the first two notes. This is the note that gives a blend staying power. The base note can appear a few hours or even a whole day after the perfume testing strip is dry. It's also called the dry out note, and this note helps you discern the lasting ability of your essential oil blend. Effective blends with powerful base notes help soaps maintain their fragrance. So for those of you who are really into your DIY projects with soaps and sugar scrubs and skincare and body washes, this is going to be important for you to note as you are mixing and blending different oils together. Those base notes are very, very important for anything that is going to sit and be used like soap or lotions and skin salves and things like that. Because the base notes are what's going to stick around. So it's recommended that when you begin your blending adventure, you only start with about 10 drops of oil so that you can test your essential oil blend without wasting too much of your precious oils. That way, if you don't care for what you've mixed up, you can toss it. So you're going to start with a small sampling, mix it, give it a test, see what you think initially. And then remember, you're only working with your essential oils right now. You're not diluting them with carrier yet. Once you've mixed it and you're satisfied with your initial test, you're going to need to let your new blend sit aside and rest for 24 to 48 hours. This resting period allows the chemicals and constituents in the different oils to mix and meld together, helping them blend better and giving you a true blend. Now, let me just say that often I find myself needing to mix up something right away. We're dealing with something in our home or a mood or something, and I feel like it's time to mix something up and to have it, and I want something different. Obviously, I'm not letting those things rest for 24 to 48 hours. And oftentimes I'm tossing them in a diffuser and hitting start. And so typically when we talk about letting it rest, this is for those of you who are really going to get into the art of blending and making your own blends, and keeping them in either roller bottles or empty doTERRA bottles where you blend things up, and this becomes a combination that you use regularly. Those, again, are going to smell a little different 24 to 48 hours after you blend them up. Obviously, something that you toss in a diffuser and hit start, it's not even going to be there 24 to 48 hours later. So the letting it rest piece of this really comes in when you're pursuing mixing your own blends for long-term use. So the test, at this point, your oils will have finished their resting period, and now it's time to smell them and see what you think. First, smell them as they are on their own and see what you think. Next, try diluting some of your blend in a carrier oil and see what you think. If you like the scent, go with it, apply it or diffuse it and see how it makes you feel. Either love it or lose it. And I know that makes some people gasp because our essential oils are precious and you're like, oh, why would you ever toss anything? But remember, that is why when we test these blends out, we are starting with like a maximum of 10 drops because you are not going to be crying if you mix up something and it smells like a barnyard and you realize that you are going to toss it. So let's give it a go together and let's talk about how this looks in practical application. Let's talk about maybe some things that we might deal with and how we would choose a blend to go with that. And it's really funny because I did this presentation back in the summer and I had an example that I used and I couldn't find it. And so I actually came up with the example for tonight, this afternoon. So today I was feeling a little tired and stressed. It was a busy week. We have a lot going on as a family, lots of Christmas activities starting. It was the end of the month and start of the month for my business, which makes for late nights and early mornings. And so it was just a really busy and stressful day. We homeschool, so the kids were needing to get some school stuff done today so that we can wrap up in time for Christmas break. So I was feeling pretty tired and stressed. And so when I sat down to make my blend, I wanted to look up oils that were good for energizing, focus, and calm because I needed energy. I had a lot of work to get done, so I needed to be able to focus despite the chaos in our house. And I needed to feel calm because I tend to be an anxious, stressed person. And so I was dealing with some feelings of anxiousness, and so I wanted to calm and settle that. So I gathered a big list. I flipped open my books and I looked up things that were energizing and things that promoted focus and things that calmed feelings of anxiousness. And I made that list and I took a look at it to see what would work well together. I referenced the notes and classifications, and then I gave it a second glance into the blending classifications and then tested it out. So I'm going to show you guys what that looked like. So here were the suggestions I found based on my needs. And you'll see there's no secret here. I've already highlighted in red what I ended up going with. So that's why those are red. I am like not a PowerPoint genius at all. I'm not even creative when it comes to PowerPoint. At this point, you can already tell that if you've been watching. So I was like, there's nothing fancy here about like putting little circles on them or anything pretty. Like I'm just going to go ahead and highlight them. So basically, the suggestions based on the needs that I had when I looked up things for energizing, and these are not the only oils I found. I was just trying to keep the list short for the purposes of fitting it on a screen. But basil, clove, cypress, wild orange, and white fir came up. When I looked up oils to promote focus and concentration, cedarwood, Douglas fir, eucalyptus, peppermint, and vetiver were some of the things that I found. And then when I looked up feelings of anxiousness, I found basil, bergamot, clary sage, frankincense, cypress, dill, and wintergreen. And so basically what you do is you kind of take an overall look at your list that you have in front of you. And so you want, obviously, your blend to pull a couple of things from each category. And I know already about myself, and again, blending is a very personal thing. And so as you're making these blends, you're going to kind of glance at your list and think about the things that you know you like. I knew right away wild orange stood out to me. I'm a huge fan of wild orange. I use it daily. I add it to my water. I diffuse it often. And so when I saw that in my list, I knew that that was what I wanted to use as my starting point. So I highly recommend that you pick a starting point, because if you spend too much time studying over this list and thinking and comparing and combining and switching, you're going to really overwhelm yourself with the choices. So I highly recommend picking a starting point. That's what I did today. I picked my starting point of wild orange. And so then I glanced over at the categories to see what citrus oils blend well with. And so you can see there at the bottom, citrus blends with floral, woodsy, minty, spicy, and oriental. And so then I kept that in the back of my mind as I made my next choices. The next thing I did was I went to this blending with note classification document. And so again, if you've not already printed this, it's in the Clearly Essential oil usage files. And so I'd already picked my wild orange, and I looked up at the top of the list to see where it falls in the blending note classification. And I saw very quickly that orange is a top note. And so I made a note of that and crossed top note off my list. Now that does not mean that you couldn't add another top note to your blend. Remember that bergamot came up in several of my categories. And so it would not hurt to use both of those. But for the purposes of this example, I chose orange as my top note. And then I moved on down to middle notes. And I know that I need a middle note for my blend. Remember, the notes each serve a purpose, and you want to have them in there. So I looked and I kind of perused down the list, and I saw at the very bottom, there is peppermint. And peppermint was on my list. If we go back real quick, you see peppermint there on focus and concentration. And I thought, oh, perfect. Now I have my middle note. So then I continue to go down the list, and I see very quickly that, oh, look, clary sage is a middle to base note. And so there are these kind of in-between categories, top to middle notes and middle to base notes. And the reason that they fall into those categories is because they serve kind of an in-between purpose. So, you know, a top to middle note is not going to be as fast to disappear in scent as a true top note. It's going to stick around a little bit longer, but it's not going to stick around quite as long as a true middle note would. So I had this middle to base note, clary sage, and I'm a big fan of clary sage. I thought, oh, I should include that, but I definitely need a base note. And well, lo and behold, there in the base notes is good old frankincense. And we all know by now that frankincense is the December promotion. And I just love knowing that I don't have to covet our last bottle any longer, because I get more free frankincense this month. So we're going to use it today because we're not having to cherish every little drop waiting for December. And so I chose to add frankincense as my base note. Now remember what I said, this last thing I do when choosing oils for blending is to go back and reference the 4 classifications. Again, it is not accurate to think that it matters the order that you add your oils in, but I do like to go back and kind of reference this just to see where things are falling in these categories, and to see if maybe I want to make some adjustments. So you'll notice very quickly, if you look in the personifier section, orange and peppermint are there. And so I know that I at least have one personifier. The other thing about this classification list is that oils can fall into more than one category, unlike the note classifications. And so if you look over, you'll see that in the enhancer section, orange is there too. So I'm like, oh, good, I'm covered. I've got peppermint as a personifier and orange as an enhancer. If you look over to the equalizer column, I've got frankincense there. And so we're good. We've got an equalizer. Nice. Clary sage falls in the personifiers category, so then I'm like, I've got quite a bit of personifiers here. And oh, look, I don't have a modifier in my blend. That does not mean that I'm going to change what I have chosen. Remember that the purpose of a modifier is to just add harmony to the blend. So what I would do as a person who enjoys blending is I would probably mix together the 4 that I have chosen. And if I felt like there was a little something missing, I would look in this modifier category and I would see if any of those oils fell or showed up on my original list. You'll see there that bergamot did. I believe that grapefruit was on the original list. And so if you feel like your blend is kind of missing something, you can add one of those in before you let it rest. I happened to toss these in my diffuser right when I came up with this example and instantly felt calm, focused, energized, obviously because I made it from that point to this point without falling asleep. So it served its purpose. In fact, that combination is what I have currently in my diffuser still, because it is absolutely divine. And I never would have thought, even using these classifications to make my own blends often, I've never really thought about mixing. I do orange and peppermint a lot. I've done orange, peppermint, and frankincense, but I've never added clary sage, and it is super nice. I recommend that you try it like tomorrow, especially if you need to calm like I did. And so I put these in the diffuser because, again, I wanted to mix it up and give it a whirl right away. I have a little bit of a struggle with the waiting it out part for 24 to 48 hours, but I will probably add these to a roller and let it rest for a day or two and see how I like it. And this may actually become my new daily perfume blend. I'm enjoying it that much. So in the final blend, if you were mixing this up in a true test form as a true like blending artist, and you're looking for 10 total drops, you've got your top note, which is going to make 5 to 20% of your blend. We chose orange, so you're going to have 1 drop of orange or 2. You know, there's no specific science. Remember, this is an art. Your middle note is going to be 50 to 80% of your blend. So that was my peppermint. So I would add about 5 drops of peppermint. My middle to base note was clary sage. A middle to base is going to carry 20 to 80% of your blend. So I would suggest 3 drops, roundabout. And then the base note, 5 to 20%. Remember, our base note was frankincense. And so we do 1 drop of that. And again, that's your 10 drops. That's when you're testing out your blend, and then you're going to let it sit and rest for 24 to 48 hours. And then you're going to use it. And hopefully this is how you feel, because remember, we were looking for calm, focused, energized. And see, this is a chick who's used this blend and then she got all her stuff done. So then she could rest because she was focused enough to get everything done quickly so that she would have some rest time. And so that is the art of blending. That is the end of the PowerPoint. That is all I have for you. I hope that you feel equipped to blend your oils. I hope that you have a better understanding of when you may want to apply oils in a layering fashion versus just blending them up. I think Crystal said at this point we will stop the recording and take questions.
Yes, let me go ahead and stop the recording. Thank you so much, Nicole. And I look forward to all the feedback and all of the fun blending and layering testimonials we're going to have. We really appreciate you sharing your knowledge with us. I'm going to stop the recording now.